Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Matt Stoller is going to join us. He's going to talk about that great Democratic relief bill. Saagar and I both have some thoughts on that as well. And also the new Facebook censorship board. Kyle Kulinski is going to join. He and I are actually going to respond to some of our critics.
Always fun.
And then Trump campaign is going to be with us. We got some poll numbers we want to press them on. He's not looking so hot with seniors. And that is actually where we want to start this morning with the campaign, because both Trump and Biden are out with new ads.
Yeah, so this basically signals the entire campaign is going to be about this. So Trump campaign is basically going all in on Biden's record and on China. As we've talked about, it's basically a 90-10 issue at this point. American people very fed up with China, not happy with the way that they handle the virus, and very much amenable to offshore and to stop offshoring our jobs, letting them control our critical supply chains. Biden campaign going all in on trying to get those seniors and other people to vote against Trump on the handling of the virus itself. So let's start off with the Trump campaign's ad, and let's take a listen. So as we've covered, I think that was a digital ad. That's one that will be playing on Facebook and more. But you can see that with these, there was a huge ad buy that the Trump campaign made. And they actually signaled this about a week ago. Allegedly, the president, seeing the poll numbers and all of that, had a confrontation with his campaign manager. But much of it was centered around which direction to take the campaign in. Because they can see, as we all can, the crosstabs of these seniors where he's just getting absolutely killed. I mean, we'll cover with the Trump campaign later. There is a poll out of Wisconsin, which I'm told is an important presidential state.
Heard that
this
too.
time around. And he's underwater there among seniors by 19 points. He has a lower amount of support amongst senior voters than he does amongst Gen Z and millennial voters.
Yes.
Who are always historically been against Republicans. So that is the turnaround, really, of the century. And it's so crazy because it's flipped from how it normally is. Trump is up amongst Gen X and older millennials. He's actually up by almost 10 points, but it's the seniors and the youngest voters who are the ones who are against him.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And it is interesting, too. I mean, we had some elections yesterday. We're still trying to figure out what turnout looks like during a pandemic, which could very much influence, obviously, what happens in November. Thing about seniors, doesn't matter. They will vote. They will show up. So if
and they'll order their ballot like 9 weeks ahead of time.
Yes, they've already put in their requests for their ballots. No, so if you wanted one group to be solidly behind you, it would be seniors. As we've discussed here before, in terms of the positioning on China and the approach to China, the polling is in Trump's favor. The American people have a very hawkish view towards China right now, assign a lot of blame to China for the spread of the virus. However, there's a difference between having the poll numbers be in your favor and having that really be the central issue. And I don't think, as people are sheltering in place, watching their jobs disappear, trying to figure out how to make it day to day, week to week, month to month, I don't think that China is the animating issue. That's why Biden does have a much stronger hand to play here in terms of critiquing Trump's response. Let's take a look at the ad that Joe Biden has put out.
It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away.
I think we're going to get through it very well.
April turns into May. The virus doesn't disappear. There is no miracle. The cases mount. The death toll grows. More than 33 million Americans lose their jobs to the pandemic. Unemployment reaches Great Depression-era levels. Donald Trump doesn't understand. We have an economic crisis because we have a public health crisis. And we have a public health crisis because he refused to act. Donald Trump didn't build a great economy. His failure to lead destroyed one.
And you know, Saagar, it is a good ad.
Yeah.
And look, the trajectory is being determined right now as the president and a lot of folks around the country are pushing to reopen. And look, the case numbers are down. The deaths are down. We are moving in the right direction. But that's because we've been on lockdown. So you reopen right now and the economy doesn't bounce back and people keep getting sick or increasing numbers of people get sick, you are in a really bad position. I think the American people really gave Donald Trump a chance on this. I mean, the early days in the crisis, approval rating was pretty decent. That has started to erode. And when you compare his numbers versus the governors in a lot of these states, the governors who were aggressive in responding, they have like 70% approval ratings. I mean, that was all available to him if he had handled this properly.
I mean, the highest approval rating in this country for a governor is Mike DeWine, Republican in Ohio. And he was one of the very first to shut down. Remember, he tried to, move the election, all absentee, all of that, fought for the actual citizens to make sure that everybody would be safe. That is all everybody really wants. I mean, and this is the funny thing is we had Stephen Moore on yesterday for that fun debate, and they really have this political idea that reopening, that people are clamoring to get out. I mean, 71% of voters in a recent survey said that they don't want states to reopen too quickly, that they're far more concerned about their safety. Now, the easiest way to assuage people, what are the two things that people are most concerned about right now? Number one, getting sick. Number two, losing their job, having it lost, replacement income. The government can fix one of those things, and it's the income. And so if you have a proper fiscal response and you don't reopen quickly and you show people that you're being very considered about this entire process, you're exactly right. You can have an 85, 90% approval rating.
But at least for now, they've decided on a different track. They've decided to try to make this a binary choice between Democrats want to destroy the economy and keep you at home, and we want to reopen it and restart the economy and give you your job back. The problem for them is actually, even if you had just that binary choice, and we know that's a false choice because you could actually provide for people, but even if you have that false choice, right now people are Democrats' side on that. They would rather stay home and lose the income and keep their lives than just reopen too quickly. And because they also know, because people aren't stupid, you can't just reopen and things are going to go back to normal. I mean, you've been tracking that movement data. It doesn't matter what the government tells you. You are going to make the best decisions for yourself and your family. But that's the bet very much that you see the administration making. You certainly see the Senate making that bet. We're going to talk more about the Democratic bill, which is terrible, but at least they're offering something. Mitch McConnell's like, no, we're not even going to negotiate with you. The only thing we really want is corporate liability shield. Like, no, we're not going to do anything because they want to turn it into this binary choice. I don't think that works out for them. No, I don't think that the American people are going to be on their side on that.
No, I completely agree. And this is the one thing, this is the interesting thing, too, I've heard from the Trump campaign, and we'll talk with Mark Lauder because I'm curious to see what he's saying, is they're making a bet that it is all about the economy. Because the one area where Trump actually continues to outpoll Biden, if you look at, so he has higher favorability ratings or relatively equal.
Depends,
And on the economy, almost consistently, people say, I trust Trump more than Biden to bring us out on the economy. So they're betting that over the next 6 months that the transition phase will move from virus handling to the economy, that by going all in on China, taking a hawkish stance on China and saying, I mean, you can hear this from Trump anytime he has a press conference. He's like, I built the greatest economy in the world and I'll build it again. That's like actually according to the polling data from what we can see, that is probably the single most effective message that he has. But my view on this is that in order to satisfy that, is that the public can turn against you very quickly. I mean, look at 1991. Like, George H.W. Bush had massive approval ratings after Iraq and all that. He lost embarrassingly in the 92 election not that long later, and it was because the economy turned on him. And that was 1/10 of what we're dealing with right now. If you appear out of step and not with the economic times and not bringing the full force of the government in order to do it, honestly, this is the one thing I've really learned. The appearance of action itself is more important than the efficacy of that action.
Yeah, look at Cuomo.
Look, I was going to say, Governor Cuomo has, basically condemned so many of his citizens with lack of inaction. Same with Mayor de Blasio. But because he has these press conferences where he's like coherent whenever he speaks, and he's like, don't worry, we got this, like I'm handling, the guy has an 80% approval rating.
And you would think that Trump would be able to pull that off. Like, that's the thing is, I would have thought going into this, I think we both kind of thought going into this, that he would, once he wrapped his head around, like, this is a real thing, you got to deal with it, that, like, the strongman instincts would come out. But they haven't been there. And so, yeah, it's interesting because you make the comparison to George H.W. Bush in the 90s, and I would say we are much more sort of hardened in our partisanship at this point, which makes it harder to have, like, a dramatic landslide or swing one way or the other. On the other hand, if anything could break you out of those patterns, it's a moment like this right now, which is why you see DeWine in Ohio with, 80% approval rate, Cuomo, with 80% approval. I don't think those are deserved, but that's where he's at. And that's why you see in Georgia, which is still sort of a red state, Brian Kemp with dismal ratings. He's like 39%. Because, it's not based on partisanship. It's people looking and going, you aren't protecting us. You don't even know what's going on. And so if there's one thing that could break through partisanship, it is this moment. So listen, I mean, it's a long way to go before Election Day. Trump has turned, people always bet on him to just continue shooting himself in the foot. Oftentimes, right when you think it's going to go off the cliff, he recuperates and pulls it back in, and somebody goes and talks sense to him, and he has a better response, and you don't want to count him out. But I think that right now, as like empty a vessel as Joe Biden is, first of all, as I mentioned yesterday, I think a lot of people actually, the idea of Sleepy Joe sounds pretty good. Like, let's just go back to sleep. Let's just have it be calm. And also, this was interesting. I think Politico wrote this up. If you look, this is another like lesser of two evils kind of election, just with Hillary Clinton, which you think might benefit Donald Trump. But as of today, the people who have a negative view of both Trump and Biden are overwhelmingly backing Biden. That's actually a really bad sign for Trump. It
is, because that is not the way that swung amongst Hillary Clinton. And I saw this from David Axelrod, too. He was like, if I was the Biden campaign, I would sponsor these Trump press conferences. And one of the things that Tim Alberta picked up on, he was like, in a campaign, the Biden campaign has no ethos. They have no driving philosophy. They have no driving, no message, zero. One thing is, we're not Trump. And so if he was like, I can't think of a better dynamic than hiding out in your basement and letting your opponent, the incumbent, just go off on TV every single day, turn it into a referendum on that incumbent. It's a risky strategy, as we point out.
Because it's all dependent on Trump.
And look, Trump is wildly like Fox. Every time I thought he was dead in 2016, he came back and somehow still won the 2016 election. So never can count out the man. But if you were to bet, as the Biden campaign is, that, look, we've got a guy who doesn't speak all that well, like, his own approval ratings are low, lowest enthusiasm in history, all this, et cetera, all the weaknesses with all these subgroups that we cover here. All of that being said, staying in the basement, it works. It's working for him right now.
I think it's the strongest hand he could play. Because right now people can just sort of imagine that he would have a more competent response than Trump. I don't know. That's not clear to me.
I don't know.
It's not. I mean, it can't even put on a live stream. So it's not clear to me that he would have like a fundamentally more competent, capable response. He'd certainly have the same corporate inclinations in terms of the relief packages that all of the Democrats and Republicans have apparently had. But when you're hiding in the basement, you can just kind of project onto him like the idealized response that you think maybe he would have if he was in his place. The more that he comes out and proves to you that he doesn't have it all together the way that you might be imagining him to have, the more that, that positioning could deteriorate. So, yeah, if you had a different candidate, you might play a different hand.
Yeah.
I think hiding in the basement and hoping Trump shoots himself in the foot and running ads like this, probably the strongest hand they can play.
Strongest one.
We're going to tell you what's on our radars. That's next.